Good morning and welcome to week 7. There goes my video. That's fine. Good morning and welcome to week 7 of Introduction to Dreamweaver. Today we will be talking about CSS transitions and web fonts. But before we dive into that, I want to touch base with you about the midterm project because we're getting close to that halfway point. So I'm going to click back to the September 26th tab on my assignments page and take you down to the bottom where it says step 5 of the homework, begin working on the midterm project. Now there are a couple of things that I want to point out here. Number one, this project is not due until October. Here it says October 26th. I need to pull up my calendar. It is actually October 24th. So this project isn't due until October 24th. So you've got 3 weeks still before that's due. But because of the fact that it is a multi-page project, I do suggest that you get started on that as soon as possible. So I'm going to spend the first 15 minutes of today's class just discussing the midterm project and primarily going over the midterm project instructions. Now you'll notice here on the September 26th tab of the assignments page, which is last week's tab, I give you an example of the midterm website, which has an opening picture which serves kind of like as a magazine cover. And notice that it transitioned onto a first page by itself. That was a meta tag transition that I demonstrate in the video, as well as I indicate how to use in the instructions. Once that opening kind of magazine cover transitions onto this first page, you'll see the basic structure of this 4-page website. Now when I say 4 pages, that doesn't include the opening transition page. So the first page is my home page. It gives the basic information about what the site is about. The second page deals specifically with one of the sub-issues. In this case, my site is about bicycling, and this sub-issue is about health. The next page deals with electric bikes, and it talks about the uses, examples, and aspects of electric bikes. And finally, the last page deals with futuristic bikes. There are several things that I will be pointing out both in the videos that are posted on the homework page as well as in the midterm project instructions. And I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about that. First of all, there are several elements of a website that are called common elements. Common elements are most often things like the header. So like at the top where it says my name and it says the main focus of the website. So in this case it has my name and it says Intro to Dreamweaver Midterm Project. And then the footer. The footer most often has links that serve as basic text links to navigate within a website. Also, a footer often has copyright information, that type of thing. This is a 2-column fixed width layout, and as it shows in the instructions for the midterm project, this is a default page that Dreamweaver generates when you choose File, New, 2-column fixed left sidebar header and footer. And that's what's required for this midterm project. Again, all of that is spelled out in the instructions. Right now I'm just giving you the example website and kind of discussing how that midterm project is created. The left column, or the side column, is also one of those common elements. In other words, on every page, that left column looks the same in terms of the navigation bar. So you've got your header, your footer, and your sidebar that essentially look the same on every page. It's only the main content area here on the right that looks different on every page. That's our unique content area. The other thing that you'll notice is at the top of the screen, I have a different title tag for every page. And this is not just because it looks nicer within a web browser. It's also semantically correct HTML. In other words, if you went to a newspaper and every section of the newspaper said, let's say it was the Press Democrat, every section of the newspaper was the Press Democrat, the Press Democrat, the Press Democrat, it wouldn't be very specific. Semantically correct is the Press Democrat sports section, the Press Democrat features, the Press Democrat community, the Press Democrat local news. The idea of the title tag is to give you more specific context for the page. So that's the basic structure of the midterm project example, and that's what I wanted you to see in terms of how the midterm project is constructed. Let me see. Let's go back to here. So that's examining the midterm project. Now there is a midterm project demonstration video. When you click on this link, it opens up one of my famous videos. You click on that button there and you'll see a very extensive video that you might have to resize a little bit in order for you to see all of the width and the height of it. I'm going to try to adjust that a little bit when I create the link. I can do that. But you'll see on the left-hand side that this midterm project has a table of contents. It shows you step by step how to go through the process of creating your website, including making sure that your setup was properly done for your midterm project. Now that should have already been done when you created your website definition from week 2. But just in case, this helps you kind of check it. And then it talks about that cover page, creating an internal page, using the palette picker extension, which by the way, I indicated in the homework as of today because of the fact that that palette picker extension, that's a nice tongue twister. That palette picker extension is sometimes a little iffy to work with. That's optional, okay? And then showing you how to swap colors for your color scheme for your website, inserting your logo, adjusting the links, creating links in the footer, adjusting the footer height, checking the order of your CSS styles, creating multiple internal pages, adjusting the cover page color scheme, creating a meta refresh tag which takes you from that opening cover page automatically into your internal pages, and create embedded style for the cover. So Anna mentioned that she downloaded the palette picker and it doesn't work. So like I said, I can't keep up with how different companies are operating or not operating in that case. So if the palette picker doesn't work, then you just can't use it. I think the reason that you're getting the 404 error is that the Adobe website, which uses the palette picker to connect to this site called cooler.adobe.com. I went there yesterday and it said it's down until mid-October. So it could very well be that for the second portion of the second 2 weeks before our midterm project is due, all of a sudden the palette picker will be working. But there's no guarantees, thus it is optional. Okay? So yeah, like I said, the Adobe website is the issue in regards to the palette picker, because that extension ties into their website. Okay? So there's that very extensive midterm project demonstration. And then here we have the midterm project instructions. I had them here. Okay? And basically it talks about using Dreamweaver to create a 4-page website that does not include, yes, I made mine 5 pages, but you don't only have to make it 4. So it talks about planning the website, storyboarding, things to consider in the storyboard process, the guidelines, the web authoring steps, and for example here, a midterm project subdirectory. You probably already have that if you follow the instructions from week 2. Basically, it goes through the entire process, creating the opening page. I've got screenshots showing you, every step along the way here. I try to make, I think at this point, you guys know that I try to be very detailed, especially because we're an online class. I want to make sure that the content is available for you in visual ways, textual ways, as well as as well as video ways. But it walks you through the entire process and has the technical assessment guidelines. One of the things that are very important for me to remind you of, there are no HTML attributes that are acceptable by any current standards. In other words, you would never use, I'll go to Dreamweaver for a second. I would never go onto this page and select the body tag of the page and then use an HTML property here. Let's see, page, I'll try to do this. I can't do this. I would never go background color and make it light gray and click on OK. Because what happens in my code is it says body BG color CCC, right? So this is an old HTML attribute. Never happened, right? Now, sometimes people end up getting those types of things on their pages. They didn't type it in that way, but they clicked some wrong buttons, like they used page properties and they went appearance HTML. These are the types of things that you have to be very aware of not to do, and that's why you have an XHTML validator on every one of your pages, because when you do something inadvertent like that and then you check to see if it validates, the validator page, the W3C validator page, will come back and tell you that you're using the BG color HTML attribute, which is not acceptable by current standards. So those instructions on my website for the technical assessment guidelines indicate essentially all of the things that you need to do to make sure that your midterm project gets the maximum score. Okay? Now, again, I try to be very specific here, and I also show at the bottom the content assessment guidelines. Whereas these technical assessment guidelines are very objective and very specific. You either have HTML attributes or you don't. You either are using div tags for the page structure or you're not. You're either following the easy to navigate rule, which is no more than 3 clicks. You either have title tags, etc., etc. These are all very objective measurements. The content assessment guidelines are a little bit more subjective, but this is where I have the luxury, as it were, or the responsibility of making sure that I can determine the purpose and goal of your midterm project, that the information is extensive and useful. Creating 4 pages that work, and the first and it's about dogs, and the first page says, this is my dog, and the second page says, this is my dog sitting, and the third page says, this is my dog rolling over. That is not extensive and useful information. Okay? So keep that in mind as you're creating your midterm project. And that your copyright issues should be addressed appropriately. And when I say about copyright issues being addressed appropriately, I don't spend a lot of time in class talking about that. Maybe I assume too much, but I think that people know that if you're going to be using somebody else's images, you have to ask them permission for it, even if it's for educational purposes. And I've never had a student tell me that they were not able to use somebody else's content in terms of imagery if they asked and explained to them it was for a school project. So that's the type of information and content that I'll be looking for when I assess that element of that aspect of your midterm project. Okay. Now, like I said, we still have, today is October 3rd. This is not due till October 24th. That's still 3 weeks away. So we'll be engaging in ongoing conversations about this midterm project. Before we move on to anything new, let me open up to the floor to see if there are any questions about the midterm project. Good, thank you, Anna. I assume since nobody else is typing, currently there are no questions. Let's just make sure that everybody is still with me. If you're awake, click on the checkbox so I can see that you're with me. Okay, Corey is definitely awake. He had a couple of, he or she had a couple of cups of coffee because that checkbox went really fast. Excellent, thank you. Chris, are you awake? Christy? Oh, maybe they're napping. Christy's awake. And Shania and Ray, yeah. Okay, Shania, Victoria, hello? You there? Well, maybe they're napping. And Chris, too. Date of last revision, yeah. Oh, Corey's in Germany. Very good. I'm glad to hear that. I was there a couple of summers ago. Curious about the date of last revision. When you say that, what do you mean exactly? Is it in my technical assessment somewhere? Yeah, timeliness. Okay, so within the footer tag, normally it will say something like your name with the copyright symbol and the date of last revision. You know, I can pull up my Dreamweaver homework page and go into my homework. There's my midterm, and there's my index 2. And I can go down here, and I'm going to pull this out of there right now. And I'm just going to type in, uh-oh, I didn't mean to pull out the whole tag. Okay. I put in my name. I insert. You'll like this. Pay attention here. I'll insert. All I have to do is find it. Things move around so quickly in this program. I'll have to go to a different place to find it. I'll go to common. Where is it? They sure have updated things to the extent that I can no longer find most of them. Okay, I'll go insert copyright, and I'll say 2012. Select that, refresh. So there at the bottom, I've got, so I set this. It's not automatic. That's right. There is, you can make it automatic with PHP. So I'll do that one more time. Type in and I go to my Common tab over to, oh geez, this is the part right here. This is it says line break. By default, I think that's what it's got, and then you've got copyright. You're also supposed to be able to find it under Insert, and there used to be something here which would say Layout and Text, and this is an updated version of Dreamweaver. If you've updated your Adobe applications, you'll actually see that there's a whole bunch of changes that they pushed out with this latest update of Dreamweaver. This is Dreamweaver CS6 still, but there's some updates that I think are only being pushed from the cloud. So if you've got the DVD install, I mean the CD install, you might not see some of the same things that I have on my screen now. I've got no control over that. But in any case, you insert your copyright symbol, and then maybe put a little space there. That would be nice. Save it and hit the F12 key to preview it in browser, and then I've got my information down at the bottom. Okay, so that is your basic tour of the midterm project. The instructions, as we already saw, are listed here under midterm project instructions. And finally, there's a tutorial on creating a background image with Photoshop for that left column. We've done that already in an earlier class exercise, so it shouldn't be an issue. Okay, any other questions about the midterm project? Otherwise, we're going to jump into some really cool stuff that I'm really enjoying about the web these days. Okay, I'm going to put a little marker in here, and we're going to talk about CSS3 transitions. Okay, hold off on the questions about tonight's homework until later, please. So, understanding the role of CSS3. First of all, CSS3 has been around for about 3 or 4 years. It's been really adopted in force over this last year. And by 2014, it's going to become the official standard of CSS. And it's really come a long way. One of the really nice features of CSS3 happens to be the CSS3 transitions. So what I'm going to show you is how easy it is to apply CSS3 transitions to a web page. And basically, the CSS transitions offer you a way to create simple animations on your page just using CSS3. Now, up until the last couple of years, you would have had to create your animations with Flash or with JavaScript. And that's still used in a lot of ways, but it is not necessary in order to create some basic transitions that you can do now with CSS. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to examine the elements that we've got here on the stage. I'm working out of the our textbook using the 07_CSS transitions.html page. And we see I've got this div called box selected. And once again, as I do every week like a broken record, the way I like to work is I click on the element in the document window, and I make sure that that's the element that I've got selected in two ways. If I click on my tag inspector on the bottom left-hand corner, I automatically see in my CSS styles panel, when it is set to current, the properties for the element that I have selected. So I see that this box, this div with an ID name box, has a background color set to 999, a border set to black 4-pixel solid. It's using the font family Verdana, Geneva, Sans Serif. It's got a height of 300. It's got a text alignment of center and a width of 300. So how do you set CSS transitions? Well, of course, you can hard code them, or you can use the CSS transition window. So if I select Window, CSS Transitions, it brings up normally what you would see as a floating window. Now, since I use CSS Transitions quite a lot, I dock it with my CSS styles and my tag inspector. And this takes us back to how you can create your own workspace. So this is part of my single screen workspace. Now I also have a double screen workspace, and I'm very excited. These are the things that get me excited. It's kind of scary, but I'm waiting for an adapter so I can have a triple screen workspace, because I like to have 3 different screens to work with, because I don't know, I'm just goofy like that. In any case, I've got my CSS transitions panel up here, and what I want to do is I want to apply a transition to this box. So I click on the plus sign, and it brings up this new transition dialog box. And it's asking me, well, where are you going to apply this new transition to? And I see there's a drop-down menu, so I choose that. And I see that the only ID I have on this page is box. So I click on box. And then the next question is, okay, when do you want to transition onto that box? In other words, when do you want to make that transition occur? And I want it to occur when I hover over the box. So essentially what you see are a list of choices: active, checked, disabled, enabled, focus, hover, indeterminate, and target. I'm not going to explain all of those tonight, this morning, but by the end of the semester we'll get a clear picture about most of those. So I want this transition to occur on my hover. In other words, when I hover over this window. Okay? And then what I want to do is I want this transition to occur over 2 seconds. And I am going to then say what function, then I'm going to say what property I want this transition to affect. And the property that I want it to affect is the height. So I select height from my list, and I'm going to change the ending value of the size of my dialog, of my box. I'm going to change it to a height of 50 pixels. Then I create the transition. Then in the right-hand side of my screen, within my CSS transitions panel, you see that it indicates that the box element, which is an ID, right? It's an ID called box, has the hover transition set onto the box. And if I want to edit that, all I'd have to do is click on this pencil, and it would bring that transition back up. But before we bring that transition back up, let's see the transition in operation. Now here I am in design view. When I roll over this, nothing happens. And the book suggests that you preview it in the browser. And yes, you can do that, but you can also preview it directly in Dreamweaver by clicking on Live. And then when I roll over this, you see my transition occur. I roll out, and it detransitionifies. I don't know if you knew that word existed. So there's my transition right there. I can see it in live view directly in Dreamweaver. Okay? I'm going to go out of live view. And I want to talk to you a little about the transition that shows up within code view, because there is some information in there that is important to understand. If I go in code view within this transition, you'll see that there are, here's my box element that already had the background color, the height, the width, the font family, and the border. Now if I look at this in the Styles panel, I'll see all of that information, and I'll also see some new lines of code that say some information up here. But you see there's even more lines of code here, because we have to deal with the fact that although CSS3 is quickly becoming the de facto standard, it's not going to be fully supported by all browsers until 2014. So what we have to do is we have to include vendor-specific code to make that transition occur. So in this case, what you're looking at, for one simple transition, it takes 5 lines of code. So for example, I'll select this first one because I want to comment this, and I want you to see the comments here. I'm going to choose Apply Comment. Whoopsie, I didn't want to apply the comment there. I want to click out over here, and I want to apply a comment, not an HTML comment because this is my CSS. So this is for Chrome and Safari. Okay? So this WebKit WebKit transition is to provide the vendor-specific code for those 2 browsers. This next line, Moz transition, is to support Firefox. So that's the vendor-specific code for Firefox. This next line is the vendor-specific code for IE. And this is not Firefox, unless it was liver. And then this last one is for Opera. Finally, what we see here is your CSS3 standard. Eventually, all you would need is this line here that says transitions, all space 2S. But until all of the browsers support the CSS3 standards, we need a lot of vendor-specific code. Now I'm going to add one other thing here, and after I add that last element, I'll open the floor to any questions. Let's say I wanted not only the height to change of the CSS transition, I wanted the color to change of the box. So all I'd have to do is go to my CSS Transitions panel, choose the hover, click on Edit the transition, and actually I think I might have to, yes, I choose on this Edit Transition, and I can change how quickly this transition occurs. So I'm changing it to the duration of a half a second, and I'm going to change the delay to 100, but I'm going to change that to milliseconds. Okay, and then you see below that there's a timing function that I'm not going to, that I'll make it ease out. So I'll talk to you a little about what each of those things means. So you'll see that there are a variety of timing functions. So the choices include linear, which maintains a constant speed for the duration, ease, which the animation starts slowly, then accelerates, then slows down when approaching the end of the transition, ease in, which has the animation begin slow and then accelerate. Ease out where the animation starts quickly, then slows down. Ease in and out where the animation starts slowly at the beginning, maintains a steady rate in the middle, and slows down towards the end. And then finally, cubic Bezier. This is a custom animation using a cubic Bezier model, which results in various animation speeds, and it has a variety of settings that we're not going to dive into today. But you can see that when I save this transition now and I go into live mode, it happens much faster because I changed the transition speed, and then I added a little bit of a delay to it. But now if I wanted to add additional elements, what I could do is I could select that box, and I can then, once I've got the box selected, I can go to my, let's see, where I can go down to here where it says Properties, and I can choose background color. And by default, what's going to happen is this next transition is going to use the same speeds as the other transition, the height transition. In other words, right now what I've just done is I typed in an N value for the background color of my box, but it's going to use a duration of a half a second, a delay of 100 milliseconds, and it's going to ease in and out. If I wanted to, I could go in here and I could say use a different transition for each property. But at this point, I'm going to save this transition. I'm going to go back and I'm going to go back to my document window, and we'll see we're still in live mode. So when I roll over this, we see the color change as well. So in essence, when you create a CSS transition, it shows up within the transition panel if you have that window open. And like I showed you, I've connected it to my CSS styles because I like to use that set of CSS3 elements. And of course, you can add new transitions at any time. Any questions about how you apply that CSS transition? Okay, I'm going to continue along the CSS transition and apply it to a nav menu in a more typical way. And you'll see that I did add one little step. I actually added two, but one is extra credit. I added one little step to next week's homework assignment, which includes adding a CSS transition to your nav menu for next week's assignment, which is a pretty easy thing to do. But I'm going to even put in a little marker in this video. My markers don't always jump up when I ask them to. There it goes. Add transition to nav menu. So basically, the little addition that I made to the homework assignment is requesting that you add a transition to your navigation menu. And I'm going to do it in two places for you. I'm going to do it right here on this test page from the chapter, and if it's not clear, I can do it also on my Homework 6 page, which I had already done, but I can undo it and redo it. So basically, what I would do in a case like a transition menu is we've already got our nice transitions where when you roll over your text, you can change the color of your background in the hover state. And that works perfectly fine. That's real nice. But if you want to make it a little more elegant, you might add a transition to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my anchor tag. I've done that in my tag inspector at the bottom, my favorite place to do that. I'm going to click on plus, and I'm going to target the rule. It would be nice if it already knew that I had that rule selected and pre-populated that window. That's something that I'll suggest to Adobe, because since I am already beta testing Dreamweaver 7, hint it's not that much better than what you already have. I'll suggest that that be pre-populated. So basically, I'm saying I want to target the anchor tag of the list item of the unordered list when it's in the navigation. This is an example of a compound rule. Okay, Ray, you get your transitions panel by going to the window menu. Okay, so I want this transition to occur on the anchor tag of the list item of the unordered list in the navigation div. And that's an example of a compound selector, right? Or we've also called it a descendant selector. We've also called it a contextual selector. Well, I want this transition to occur on hover, right? So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to say over 400 milliseconds, I want to change the background color. So I go to my properties, I choose background color, and I type in the background color that I want. I want the background color to change to that lighter green for the background. And then I want to add a second change, and that's going to be to my color. That's my text color, right? And I want that text color to be a dark green. Or do I want it to be white? Let's see here. Yeah, I'm going to type in 060. So it's a very dark green. But I want the transition to be a little different, so I'll use a different transition set of adjustments here, and I'll set the delay. I'll set the duration to 100 and the delay. I'll set the duration to 500 milliseconds and the delay to 100 milliseconds, and I'll set the timing to be ease in out. In other words, it starts slow, it stays constant, and then it ends slow. And I can click on create the transition. I'll go to live view. I roll over this, and we see that really nice little transition occurring to my navigation items in my nav bar, right? Notice in my CSS transitions panel it says 5 instances because I have 5 anchor tags that descend from the list item, that descend from the unordered list inside of my navigation ID div. That's why it says 5 instances here, right? So that's like incredibly super easy to do. And it's also incredibly fun. So this overwrote the hover instructions from before. Well, the hover instructions from before were on a different page, right? So these are CSS, this is CSS code that is specific to the document that you're working in. In this case, there's an attached style sheet, and we see what ended up happening is right here. Navigation UL LIA. So the anchor tag, when it descends from the list item, when it descends from an unordered list, when it's inside of the navigation div. And this is the code that is written for that to support all those different browsers. WebKit transition is for which 2 browsers? Let's see who remembers. Chrome and Safari. Thank you, Victoria. And then we have Moz transition, which is for Firefox. Very good. And we've got MS transition. That should be an easy one. It's got MS in the word. IE. And finally, O transition for Opera. Okay, and then finally, transition is the default CSS3 standard that eventually all of the browsers will be supporting. Okay, so that's code that is specific to that tag in this particular scenario. The good thing about that is that since it's a contextual tag, these links over here, which are also anchors, which are also list items. Wait a second. They're not list items. Let me get out of live view. These anchor tags, which are part of a paragraph, none of that transition stuff is going to affect it because this anchor tag is not contextually the same as those. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions about these transitions? Yes, if you have any questions, this is a great time for you to type them in. Yeah, I agree. This is one of those scenarios where you want to play with the transitions and do some experiments. And it's like anything else, you know, some of these transitions are nice and they're elegant and they actually add something to the web page, but others aren't. You know, I remember back in the 90s, the blink tag. Boy, that was annoying. Just because you could do it didn't mean that you should. Okay? Now we're going to move on to another topic which is near and dear to me, and that has to do with web fonts. Okay, so I'm going to close this page, and I'm going to take a look at this web fonts page. So, can you use transitions to enlarge thumbnails of an image? Yes, you can do a zoom transition as well. There are a lot of other ways to go about dealing with enlarging images, but transitions is definitely one way to do that. So we're going to talk about the basics of web fonts, and I'm just going to take a chance here and type a search here, basics of web fonts, and come up with, see what we come up with. Okay. It was a good guess. And this article is entitled A Guide to Web Typography. And basically it says typography for the web has come a long way since Tim Berners-Lee flipped the switch in 1991, right? Back in the old days, web typography was something of an oxymoron. As a matter of fact, when I first started doing web, looking at information on the web, it was through a terminal emulation, and all you saw was orange text being typed. Up until last year, the big problem was that you had to define a specific font in your CSS, and a visitor to your site would have to have that font, or a substitute font would be used. But now there's an accepted technique called web fonts, and that is a feature of CSS3 called the @FontFace tag. Basically, it allows you to embed any font within a page by declaring the font you want to display and placing that font on your web server. When the user visits your site, the browser renders the page using this font wherever specified. Adding web fonts is a straightforward process. However, there are certain issues related to it. One is a copyright issue. And Adobe has recently addressed that, and you'll see that a little bit later. But first, let's take a look how we would implement this inside of Dreamweaver. So here I am inside of Dreamweaver. I have created a interesting little transition to this page here, but I'm looking at my CSS styles, and okay, I'm going to kill this because I don't want you guys to have this yet. There we go. I'm looking at my CSS styles, and I see I've got my H1 text in my div main, right? And you can see, by the way, just as a quick bird walk, I use this tag inspector down here because when I select H1, it shows me the rules for H1. When I select main, not only does it show me the rules for main, but it gives me a visual outline in terms of my margin, my border, and my padding. Helps me outline that div in some visual ways, so it gives me some visual aids. But anyway, I'm going to select this H1 tag, and we see there are no properties that, as a matter of fact, I'm going to kill this as well. I'm just going to go into Code View, and I'm going to take out this tag that I have put in, because in your start file in your book, you won't have that tag. So let me go back to source code, design view. So we see here, here's my H1 tag. And there's no rules that are specifically targeting the H1 tag. We see that there are rules that are affecting the H1 tag, and these rules are important to understand how they work in the Properties panel and how the cascade works. So I see that there are actually 3 rules that are applying to the H1 tag, because the H1 tag descends from div main, which descends from div container, which descends from body. So it shows me that even though the H1 tag doesn't have any specific rules, it's affected by main, by container, and by body. When I click on main, though, we see all of the 3 rules are they're strike-through. They're crossed out, and that's because that doesn't mean that these rules don't apply to H1. It just means that they don't directly affect H1 because they're not relevant. In other words, the float tag does not affect the H1 because it's a block level element, and we're not telling it to not be a block level element. The margin left is referring to the main, it's not referring to the H1. And the width is referring to the main, it's not referring to the H1. When I click on container, we see everything is striked out except for text align. So container says that our text within the container is going to align left. That applies to the H1 tag as well. That's why that's not stricken through. Finally, if we choose body, we see that there are several rules that are affecting this H1 text. The color of the text. Body says that all text within the body of our page is going to have a dark gray color. Now, if I click on this disable CSS property, it's going to affect the color of that H1 tag, right? We also see that the font family and the font size that are being applied to the text throughout this document are being applied to this H1 as well. That's why those 3 rules here are not grayed out. Are not crossed out. But let's say I wanted to use a web font. So how do web fonts work? As I said earlier, the web font is uploaded to your server, and in the code it tells the end user, in order to see this web font, you're going to temporarily download these web fonts to your computer. They live in the cache of the person's browser until they leave your website. And basically it's saying that while you're on this website, use this web font that you've just downloaded from the server in order to display what the end user wants you to see. The great value of that is you're no longer stuck with the traditional fonts that you know are on the end user's computer system. You can use any fonts that you like. So how do you go about implementing that? Well, here's how we would do it to the H1 tag. I'd click on my H1 tag in my tag selector. I would go down to my HTML panel, and I would choose, where is it? Give me a second, sorry about that. No, I have to, let's see. Okay, just give me 1 second. I got a little behind here. Oh, okay. So the way we're going to do this here is it's a two-step process. We are going to use the Properties panel, but not right now. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose Modify Web Fonts. And I'm going to delete this one. And I'm going to add a font. Now the way you add a font is you bring up this Modify Web Fonts dialog box, and it talks about the Web Fonts suitcase. And what you have to do is you have to click Add a Local Font. Now the book instructions are wrong here. It says on step 5 for working with web fonts, it says click Add Font. They meant click Add Local Font. So I decide what font that I'm going to be adding, and this is a font that I already had resident on my system, and I'm going to talk to you later about how you can get fonts resident on your system. But to follow what we've got here, these are fonts that are resident on your system. So for this exercise, that is. So I've typed in the name of that font, and I'm going to click here where it says Add Font to our list, and I choose this EOT font. I click on Open, and then I click on I have properly licensed the above fonts for website use. I click on OK. That font now shows up in my web font suitcase. I click on Done. Now we don't see any change here because we're in Design View. And at this point, we still have not applied this web font. We've put it on our page and made it available, but we haven't applied it to our H1 tag. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the H1 tag, and we're going to go to our new CSS rules, and we're going to create a less specific rule to target all H1 tags within this page. Click on OK. And now from this font family, when you scroll down, you'll see that new web font that we created. And I can click on Apply Now, and I can see a change. Now I wanted to fuss with this a little bit, and I decided that I liked small caps. So I click on Apply, and I could see that applied as well. Now to see it in live view actually is even better. When I click on live view, there's what it looks like. So I've added a web font, and by adding that web font, there's several things that have happened in my code. My styles panel has two things that have occurred. At the very top on line 2, it says @import space URL web fonts / droid sans bold /stylesheet.css. So it's basically saying that I've got a style sheet, which is a whole separate style sheet the way it's done here, and it's pointing to a source folder which has all of these different web fonts in 4 different formats. Now, in the brevity of what we're doing here today, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking to you about the difference between EOT, WOFF, TTF, and SFG files. Suffice it to say that these are extensions that stand for different file types that you need to support different browsers. Like SFG is Scalable Vector Graphic, TTF is True Type Font. I don't remember off the top of my head what WOFF and EOT stand for, but these are all the, EOT is Embedded Open Type Font, and I don't know what the WOFF stands for. But these are the different essentially, what's happened when you create a font set that's going to be resident on your server, you have to create a whole bunch of additional fonts to go along with there's not just one font, there's a whole set of fonts. Usually people create these 4 in order to do this. And then you have to upload all of these fonts to make sure that they're available. So if I look at the structure, let me go back to my digital classroom lessons. So if I look at the structure, you see I've got 2 things that are happening here. In my styles CSS, it's saying import from the web fonts folder. That's right here. A droid _ _sans _ set of fonts. Right there. And also the style sheet that goes along with it. And that style sheet, which goes along with those fonts, points where it says source : URL. It points within the same folder to find those fonts. Okay? Now this process is not outlined in the book clearly. They just say click here, click there, and click in the next place, and then you do it. That's why for this homework assignment, I'm not requiring that you use a web font, but I am giving you an opportunity to explore some things that are actually much easier than this to create some web fonts. And this whole new world of web fonts is great. It just requires, and it's really pretty easy to do, it just requires a couple of little tricks. Now, the question often comes up, where can you get more fonts to work with? Well, there are many places, and there are places that you can generate your own fonts. So I'm going to share with you a couple of places, and then we're going to take our break. So, how to get more fonts. That's our title of this section. So if I want to get more fonts for use on my websites, there are many things I can do. I can go to fontsquirrel.com, where I can find commercial use free fonts, but these aren't free. They're open source public domain fonts. But the nicest thing that I find here is this thing called the Font Face Generator. And this is where you can upload a font. Okay? So you can convert any font into a set of fonts that you can use. So the first question is, how do you know that the font is legally eligible for web embedding? Well, there is the copyright standards for the font. Once again, when it comes to creating a project for educational use only, you have a lot of flexibility. If you're going to be using fonts commercially, then there are different standards for that I'm not prepared to address with you. But let's assume that these are fonts that you are using for educational purposes. You would click on this agreement. You would click where it says Add Fonts, and you would find wherever it is that you have fonts. Now, I would need to go through my computer here and get those fonts, and maybe what I'll do is I'll set that up so I can show you how to use the font face generator after we take the break. But the first thing I wanted to introduce to you is that the Font Squirrel is a great place where you can find fonts and download them, but if you're downloading them for off-site use, there is a fee attached to that. So if I clicked on download for off-site use, you would see that I'd need to add this font to a cart, and there's money that's associated with that. But the font face generator here allows you to create those fonts really quickly on your own. But there are several other truly free options. One is on the Google website. You'll see there's a really easy way that you can use the web fonts that they have here, and you can click where it says Quick Use, right? And basically it tells you how do you choose the character sets you want, and how you add the code to your website, how you integrate the font into your CSS, and boom, you're done. Okay? And yet there's even one more, and this is my favorite of all. This is the Adobe Edge Web Font tool. So here you get a whole slew of free fonts that is unbelievably easy to use. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. I'm going to come back after the break, and I'm going to show you how to use the font generator, the Google Web Fonts, and the Adobe Edge Web Fonts, and then answer any questions. So let's take our 10-minute break now. Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 different ways how to incorporate web fonts into your website. And the first one is going to be most similar to what you have in the book, except it's going to be more extensive. It's going to show you how to actually create the fonts and place them in the right directory. The second and third ways are super easy. The only difference is that the first way we do it, we actually create the fonts and upload them to our own server. Whereas the second and the third way, we're going to be using either the Google server or the Adobe server to host the web fonts, which is, I mean, incredibly wonderful and easy that they have that available. So here we are with the @font face generator. And when we were looking at the web fonts in the book, I showed you there were 4 different fonts that you have to create in order to work successfully on the web with different fonts. So when I choose the @font face generator at the Font Squirrel website, the first thing it asks me to do is add fonts. Now I can have I can find fonts in a million places, whether I get them from my font suitcase or if I even create them on my own with Adobe Illustrator, wherever I get them. I need to get the true type font to start with. That's the TTF file that you always, that basically is the default file type when you have a font. What I do to generate the entire set is I click on Add Font. I find the location of my font, and I click on Save, and it uploads that font. Now, I already have that there because I've done it once, but it uploads that font, and then I have three choices: Basic, Optimal, and Expert. I'm going to have you choose Basic, click on the Yes, the fonts I'm uploading are legally eligible for web embedding, and then click on Download Your Kit. And what it does is it goes through the process of creating a set of fonts for you, and it sends them to your computer. So in my case, the files are located over here in my Downloads folder, and we see that it's generated an EOT, an SVG, a TTF, and a WOFF file for me. It also generated an HTML page and a style sheet. So if I double click on this, I can see all of the fonts that are showing up just from a lorem ipsum file on my page. Okay? But what I have to do now is I have to locate these in the proper folder. So what I'm going to do is within my site definition here for my my book, I already had a web font subfolder which had droid _ bold. But why don't I do this in a different way? Why don't I create the subfolder in my homework, just because that's where you would more likely be doing this. And let me reassure people who are watching this after the fact, this is not a requirement. This is simply optional fun. So I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to say a new folder, and I'm going to call that folder Web Fonts. And with that folder being created, I'm going to drag these 4 files directly to my web font folder. I think it did it. Yep, right there. How come it's not doing it? Okay, I'll do it the long way then. The long way is I go like this. I take them to, I think it's because they were inside of a zipped folder. So now I can go back here, and I can take those 4 fonts right on my desktop and drag them and drop them into the Web Fonts folder. Okay? Now, the next thing is looking at that Web Fonts folder here. Let's see how I can find that here. We see I've got this style sheet. I'm just going to put this on my desktop for a second. I don't know what the style sheet says yet, but I'll find out in a moment. And I'm going to open it up in Dreamweaver, and there it shows me at font face, font family. It already wrote everything out just the way I need it. So I'm going to take this style sheet and I'm going to save it into that same folder. So I'll say File, Save As, and I'll go to that folder. All right, my folder is Intro to Dreamweaver. There we go, Web Fonts. I'll go to that folder and I'll save my style sheet there. Okay, so now I'm going to close all these windows that I've got here open. Okay, and here's my web font folder. There's my, I hit the refresh button. Yep, there's my style sheet. I will open up, let's say, homework 4. I'll do homework 3. It's going to be a little easier for me. And I'm going to go through the process now of creating the styles that are necessary. I'll select Modify Web Fonts, and I'll add a local font. And I will click on EOT Font, and I'll see there's my font folder. Where we are. There we go. I click on, I have properly licensed the above. I click on OK. I click on Done. Now I select the H1 tag. I create a new rule just for the H1 tag. I click on OK. Where it says Font Family, I choose Arbutus. I click on OK. I go to my code. We see the font family has been added to the H1, and it's my, let's see where the rest of it's located. At the top it says at import URL web fonts inside of a subfolder called Arbutus, where you've got your style sheet. So basically that process involved me going to the Font Squirrel, letting it generate a kit which includes not only all of the fonts that I need, but the style sheet. And then going back to Dreamweaver, choosing Modify Web Fonts, and going through the steps of adding that font set locally and then applying a new style. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, 2 other ways to do it. I'm going to do this time to the H2 tag. Next way is by using Google Web Fonts. So I'm going to look at different fonts here. We're going to look at Archivo Narrow, quick use. So basically, I've got my character set. I've got my font sets and subsets. I see there's this code that I have to add to my website. Oh my goodness, you're going to say, how easy is this? Copy. I go to my web page. I click on code. I go to the top of my page, and it's like a link to a style sheet. So I would probably put it like here. It's got to be in the head. So it says link to the Google set of fonts, and it tells me all of the specifics right there. And then all I have to do, go back to Google to make sure I do it right, basically copy this, which is the font family, the name of the font, and the default backup, which is sans serif. Go back to Dreamweaver, go to Design View, choose H2, create a new rule, and this time I only want it to apply to H2 inside of the content div. Click on OK, and actually click on OK again, and this part is a little counterintuitive because you have to do this in code view. So right there is my rule that doesn't have anything attached to it yet. So I'm going to right-click and go to that code and just paste in font family Archivo Narrow Sans Serif. I'll go to Design View. I'll save this. I'll look at it live. And we see here's H1, here's H2, and currently this is H3. So how do we do H3? Yes, we go to the Adobe Edge web font and use their approach. Even easier. All I have to do is click which font I like. Let's try, I think I saw the word Maui. Oh, that's Mooli. I thought it said Maui, which would be great. We're going to go for Newton, N-E-U-T-O-N. Even easier. I copy this, one line of code. I put it into my document. Again, in the head tag. Normally, we wouldn't see all these styles in our head, right? That would be in a, after our midterm, we'll see that it's all going to be separate. I paste that one line of code in, which essentially is using a JavaScript function. I go back to the Adobe website. I copy this next line of code. I go back to Dreamweaver, and I'm going to paste that code in here, but of course change that H1 to H3. And if I wanted it to be only within the content div, I would type in .content space H3. I go to Design View. I go live. We have three different web fonts that are appearing on our page that all viewers are going to see, because those fonts are either being pulled from our own website and pushed to the end user's computer, or they're being pulled from the Google and or Adobe website and being pushed to the end user's computer. So those are three different ways to incorporate web fonts into your website. Questions about that? Again, this is one of those scenarios where I showed you the steps. It's really just a matter of practicing those steps a bunch of times, and you'll have it down. So any questions? Should we include backup fonts? Right. So, good question. If I go to Code View, you'll see that the font sets themselves always have backup. They always have generic backup. Other questions? Always have generic backup, that's right. So here with the H1, it doesn't have that generic backup in here. I would just go in here, comma, sans serif. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so let's take a look at the homework. I promised that we would do that, and that will wrap it up for us. So let me click right over here. So what is our homework? Read lessons 7 and 8. I updated that. It just said 8 before, so it should say 7 and 8. Examine the homework 6 example page, paying special attention to the fact that the table has no attributes. All of its styling is accomplished by the last few rules of CSS in the head of the document. Open up homework 6, change the text in the header and the value in the title tag to homework 6. Delete all the existing content in the main div and create a 2-column, 2-row table in style appropriate to your site color scheme. Where is this homework 6.html? Well, you remember the first week when you created your homework your index page, you were to save it as homework 2, homework 3, and homework 6. So if I opened up homework 3 as an example, what you were supposed to have done already is, and let me get out of live view, is you've already saved this. This page would already have been in your arsenal as homework 6. So you're opening that up and removing the content from the content div and replacing it with a table. I want to make sure that I don't have an H1 tag in there, which I no longer do. I insert table, and let me get back to those instructions. 2-column, 2-row table with styling appropriate to your site's color scheme. Where it comes to styling appropriate to your site's color scheme, at this point, I expect that you're able to use the CSS Styles panel to do that. So 2-row, 2-column, and you're removing all of these properties here from the HTML because these are HTML attributes that we do not want. So there's my 2-row, 2-column. Now, when I click on the table tag, and I'm going to style this table, then what I would need to do is I would create a new rule for this document that maybe had, for example, the box is going to have a width of 99%. So it goes all the way across, right? And that is the table, right? And I click on OK. And oh yeah, for the table, I'd probably also put a little bit of a padding. So I'm going to edit that rule and give it a padding maybe of 2 all the way around and a margin of 1 all the way around. I might even create a border here of solid and thin, and I'd pull a color from my site and click on OK. And then I might go into my table row and say this is a header row. So now it is a header. So now I could go into here and select the TH tag, and I can create a new rule for the TH tag if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. Instead, what I'm going to do is, let's see. Yeah, I'll create a new rule for the TH tag. And again, this is the kind of thing that you should pretty much be comfortable doing because you're using the CSS Styles panel a lot already. And then I might choose a background color here and a type color here, and I click on OK. So I'll say back to my instructions. Good design, bad design. Okay, so I go in here, I type in good design. I type in here bad design. Okay, now I'll go into this second row and I'll have determined my good design stuff, and I'll go here and I'll have determined my bad design stuff. So I have good design and bad design. The instructions basically say identify a website that fits the good design criteria outlined here. Now you're going to read that on your own, and it's going to be the same stuff that we have been talking about all semester long in terms of text, navigation. These are your basic usability, good design features. and then you're going to identify a website that fits that criteria and create a link and write a paragraph summary of the good design website in the column 1, focusing on the good design criteria. Then you'll read the bad design criteria there and create a link and write a paragraph summary of bad design website in column 2, focusing on the bad design criteria. So if I use my homework 6 example page, we see that I found the Adobe website met a lot of good design criteria, and I talk about the specifics of the good design criteria that I have a link to. And then I found this website, one of my all-time favorite ugly websites, has a really plethora of bad design elements in it, and I talk about that over here. Okay? Now, there's one other thing that I'm going to point out to you. If I preview this page, and I'm uploading some files in order for this to happen, you'll see that I've got a border around my table, but I don't have a border between my rows. So if I wanted to do that next step, I would choose the TD tag. I would create a new rule for the TD tag, and it would probably be table TRT. It could even be less specific than that, but that's fine. And I would choose border and solid, thin, that green, click on apply, and then I'm going to upload this again and show you there's one problem that needs to be addressed. Notice essentially I've got double borders going on there now. What I have to do is I want to add one more line of code when I'm working with the table, generally speaking, in terms of what I consider good design. I would go to my table tag. I would click on edit the rule for table. And this is one of those things that I cannot do within this window here. I have to go here and click add a property and type in border collapse, and click here and pull down the word collapse. And then when I save this and upload it, you'll see what happens. Oh, maybe I'm supposed to not put it on table. Maybe I'm supposed to. Oh, right. It accidentally went on the TD tag. That's not where it belongs. Let me throw that off there. I have to go to the table itself. Where's my table? It's a matter of finding my rules here. Let's try this again. There's table. There we go. I went back to CSS Styles Current. I click on Edit Rule. And again, like I said, you're not going to find it in this dialog box, so you have to go right here within this window, click on Add Property, and you can click on the drop-down if you don't remember that it's border collapse, and simply scroll down till you see border collapse, and then click on this drop-down and choose collapse. Then I save that page, and I preview it, and this time, notice how those double borders collapsed, so we only have a single border around each of the cells within that table. So, going back to my homework, we opened up homework 6, we deleted the existing content in the main div. You're going to apply a CSS transition technique from the textbook pages 196 through 198 to the sidebar navigation menu, which again is very straightforward. You did it in the book. All I'd have to do is select here, go to my CSS transitions, click on the Create New Transition, target the rule, which in this case would be the UL nav A, right? Click on hover, click on the property, choose background color, and I'm going to pick white as the background color, and then add another for the color, and oopsie, I didn't add, let me get rid of that one. So I'm going to do a duration thing here. The duration is 1 second with a delay of 100 milliseconds, and make it ease in out. And now I'll add that second rule color, and I'll use the same properties, but the text color is going to be a dark green. That's almost black. There we go. And then I click on Create Transition. I save that file. I preview it. And now I see I added the transition really easily. Okay, going back to those instructions, identify a website that fits the good design, create a link and write a paragraph, identify a website that fits bad design, create a link and write a paragraph. And for extra credit, do the web font stuff that I showed you earlier. Save that page and upload hw6.html to your website. So that's the homework. The important thing for me about you doing this homework is that you read that article and you click and you create a link to the article. There needs to be a link so I can get to the article as well. Okay, so that's our summary of homework 6. Any questions that you may have about the subjects that we've been discussing today? Here's my homework 6. You see, the one thing that I did for that, the extra credit point, is I added another row down here and indicated that the table header text uses a web font called League Gothic. Okay. So, no questions about next week's homework. Let's see. Anna has a question about this week's homework. So, what's your question about this week's homework? I had a hard time understanding the questions. Okay, well, here's my example page. Examine the CSS in this document and provide the explanations for the following. Why does the left column color continue all the way down? What is a tag selector? Well, the tag selector is discussed very specifically in the book on page 255. As a matter of fact, that's the title of that section of the book. Well, what I'm asking in question 4, where it says questions derived from lesson 9, is what is the tag selector? And that's what is discussed on page 255 of the book, what the tag selector is. You can use a quote from the book. Any other questions? You're very welcome. No other questions. That means everybody is just hunky-dory. Everybody knows exactly what they're doing. I'm having a hard time following. Oh, this is Anna also. I couldn't get the nav bar to center. Okay. Let's take a look at the nav bar. So one of the tricky things about the nav bar, and I'm not going to be deducting any points for this, is when you're creating a nav bar like this, unless you give it a default width, you can't use margin left and right set to auto. You have to create a value to that. In other words, if I bring up my rulers here, and I set my rulers right there, I can see that my nav bar up here, assuming my text is this size, is about 450 pixels. So if I know that information, then I can go to my unordered list, go to my CSS styles, look at my current rule, and notice how it says margin left, margin right, auto. This is not working because I haven't set a width to this. As soon as I go here and I choose box and I set a width, let me set the width to 450 pixels and click on OK. And I probably can, let me see what happens if I, oh, that I don't want to do, definitely don't want to do that. Okay, margin left, margin right. So now when I preview this page, and I refresh, it's centered. So the key to working with an element that you want to have centered is that the element itself has to have a fixed width. If that element has a fixed width, then margin left and margin right will work. Well, if it moves all over when you try, then you're going to need to look to see if you might have other paddings and margins that are set up within there. The only downside to what I just showed you is, let's say somebody makes the screen, the text on their screen bigger. What will happen is that my nav bar is told to be 450 pixels. So what's going to happen is my text is going to start getting crowded out. Oh, actually, it's working pretty fine. So that works really nice. So setting your element to a fixed width enables you to use margin left and margin right for your nav bar. But I'm not deducting for that. Okay? No, I don't think I specified anywhere in the instructions that you have to center that nav bar. Anything else? Okay, you're very welcome, Anna. Nobody else has any questions. Anna's got the Curiosity Award today. Okay, well, if we're all good, Carol has one. Go ahead, Carol. Right. So basically, for your links, you're going to create links here that go to pages that don't exist yet. You don't have homework 7 or homework 8 or homework 9 or homework 10. But all you have to do is link them anyway. I can select HW7, for example, and go to my Properties panel and simply type in hw7.html, because you are going to have an hw7.html eventually. You're going to have an hw8.html, right? And they're all going to be in the same directory, so you can link to them even before they exist. The only one, okay, so that's not a big deal to me. I'm not going to click on all of the links within the nav bar to make it all to see if they're going anywhere. But you definitely, if you don't have an actual link, you do need to have a dummy link, right? And a dummy link is like the pound sign. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so that's all she wrote. That's all we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure that you get started with that midterm project. You've got 3 weeks, but 3 weeks goes by pretty darn quick. And explore the CSS transitions and the web fonts for extra credit if you like. And otherwise, oh yeah, make sure that you read the chapter on tables. Tables, I really downplay these days. They're basically tabular, but the book does talk about using tables and formatting those tables, and it's pretty straightforward. Nothing tricky to do that. Nothing tricky involved with doing that. Okay, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate when people are in the class live. It helps the teaching process. Have a great day. See you all next week.